Hola, mi gente. Welcome to episode 10 of Crystal Sage Wisdom. We are so excited to be here with all of you. And once again, we thank you, La Comunidad, for all the love and support that you've been giving us so far as we have been, energizing and growing this space and the community.
First of all, we just want to say, no, we are not trying to mind control you if you're hearing those repetitive clips. And we have to apologize for the sound quality. We do live in a neighborhood that's constantly building, that there's constant construction. It's very hot today, so what you're hearing is the click of a fan that we appreciate is on, to be quite honest. And we are also in the graduation season. And I have to say, I don't know about you, but I love seeing people in their graduation gowns.
Me
And if
too.
you are celebrating a moment right now where you've graduated or one of your family members has graduated,
We honor you.
we congratulate you. This is a big moment. Celebrate it. This is a big accomplishment. And for those who maybe graduated a few years ago and weren't able to really fully celebrate your graduation, and maybe I think that's what we're going to talk about today, like stolen moments. I think that one of the reasons for me that it makes me feel so good when I see the images of people graduating online or face to face is we didn't see that for years. And I know that a lot of parents and a lot of young people missed their graduations, missed those amazing ceremonies. And if you happen to be one of those people, I hope that you have found a way. And if not, no better time than the present moment to honor that rite of passage in your life.
Yeah. I'm going to definitely piggyback on, you know, what a special time when we all reach moments like this in our life. They really are rites of passage. They represent that. It's like an ending of something and the beginning of another. And, throughout our whole life, we're going to experience so many expressions of it. But graduations, I agree. I feel the same way. Like whenever I see families walking with their graduate, you see the pride in the family. Like, this is my boy, this is my girl, like
It's a celebration
it
for,
feels so good.
or
And
at least it should be a
right.
celebration for the whole family because
Mhm.
you are part of whatever like
Community, whatever.
community. And that's part of like the modern trickery of it all is that it makes you think that you're doing it by yourself or that you need to do it by yourself. And that in a sense is not true. I mean, obviously, like we all have our independent goals and all that stuff. But what I'm saying is, for example, this podcast doesn't happen with two
Excuse me.
people if my sister and I don't show up to do it together and meet each other, right? So the success of this is also the success of us showing up for each other and for something that's important. And
Be in front of the camera and off the camera.
yes, yes, the off the camera, there's a lot of preparation.
A lot of tedious work, a lot of details, and if if we don't do our part, you know, then it doesn't move forward, right?
And we're living in communities right now that they're afraid to celebrate themselves and their successes. And I think this is kind of why we're feeling excited, but also a little bittersweet as we contemplate stolen moments. And 2020 forward did steal a lot of moments and even loved ones from people. And at some point, we may have to, and you let us know in your comments if you would like us to host these, sort of like a wellness grief circle, not for us to only talk about grief, but to talk about how we move forward. And part of that is acknowledging that If you feel like you missed the moment, if you feel like you missed the moment and that you weren't able to have it with a loved one, if you feel grief because maybe a relationship got severed during that time, whatever it is, fill in the blank. It could be that you didn't get to go to your prom or you didn't get to graduate.
Right.
Whatever that stolen moment is for you, we need to allow ourselves the opportunity to feel those emotions that are raw. Um, and when you allow yourself to feel them and maybe even cry it out, that's when you can finally really take steps to learn to live with that newness, to fill that new space, that emptiness that you feel is taking so much of your heart, your time, your soul. It's weighing us down. Um, this time is a great opportunity to sort of check, see like what luggages are you carrying? How are you packed? Is your suitcase really messy, filled with junk and Dorito wrappers, eating food? Or is it like, I'm going on a luxury vacation? No judgment. It's just a question. It's a reflection moment. And we all need to go through these moments of self examination. And as you know, we're being very vocal about our journey. And this is why we're doing these videos to give you a little insight of how we process these day to day challenges that are coming up for all of us as we're learning how to even communicate with one another. Because even that is so difficult these days.
Especially because the ways in which we communicate in the present has shifted so much that unfortunately it doesn't seem to have shifted in a way that has been helpful. I feel like it's in some ways it's allowed us to take like a few steps back in the success of our ability to communicate, which is really ironic, right? Because we're
Ironic.
living in a time where, with all of the resources and ways that we have access to information, to resources, the many ways that we can express ourselves, why does it feel that with all of this, we actually have less of that going on? And yet it is such a crucial component of who we are as an individual, as a relationship, and such a crucial component in the success of anything and everything that we do. And like circling back to like the focus of this chat, like my sister said, focusing on the stolen moments during those years. We all have them. Some of us may have been a little bit more blessed in how they experienced those years. Some of us may have had more extreme, intense times throughout those years, but everyone had some sort of stolen moment. And like my sister was saying before, I just want to reiterate how important it is for you to understand that it is okay for you to feel any sort of way about any moment that you felt was stolen from you, even if in your eyes it was like a quote unquote little thing,
Right.
you know? But because at the end of the day, no one had a right to do that to you,
And I think
you
that's
know?
a great point because I think that under the guise of for your health and everybody's safety, many of us were tricked into going along with something that we now know without a doubt some of these things were filled with fake news and holes, such as the masks didn't work. Not Masks aren't meant to be used as as you're walking around through your day. I'm eating something, I stop, and I put my mask on, then I put it down, or I put it in my pocket. That's a whole bunch of germs spreading around. Not to mention what you're breathing in and out, right? You're breathing in and out your own bacteria. And under the guise of do it for everybody else, many people made that sacrifice and they worked 8 hours or more a day under the hot sun. Some people experiencing fainting spells, dizziness, ending up in the hospital with different type of
Excuse me.
infections. Some people died because they fell from ladders or they got into a car collision, all because there were people who died wearing a mask and exercising. Why on earth was this some like this is how you know that something it may not be okay with humanity when you see people who are all about health and are very health conscious doing something like wearing a mask that is by all indications anti-health,
Didn't make
but
sense.
it got weaponized. It was used as a political mechanism. Meanwhile, the politicians were laughing in our faces. They would walk into rooms, not all, not all, not all, without a mask. Oh, the camera is going to be on. Oh, the press is here. Time to put on your mask and act. And let's not forget the many times we saw pictures of politicians with other people, constituents, or children, and all of them were masked. I don't know. When I look back at those times, when I look back at those pictures, when I think about our governor going to Puerto Rico and she's maskless, but all the little kids are dancing and singing and they're all masks, that is an optic that's hard to ignore because it almost looks like, yes, master, yes, master.
Pero I think that one thing that we want to communicate to you all is as we begin to do videos and chats around COVID, we understand that this is an incredibly polarized topic, you know, and many people had an incredibly polarized experience during those years. And there are a lot of sensitivities. But I think what we don't want you to hear us talk about one component and for you to immediately associate it to even politics, right? Or to a side within politics, because
This was all about health.
exactly. And so that's what I wanted to just remind the community that, you know, we are urban medicine women. This is what we've been doing for many years. And that means that we have to be willing to dive into the topics that are polarized, that are uncomfortable, especially when it is affecting our health. And in the ways that COVID years affected us was whole body experience. And to this day, we're still being affected by it. But like my sister said earlier in the video, being able to move forward and heal, because at the end of the day, that is the numero uno intention and goal. And it should be for all of us. It's about moving forward and healing and trying to find the ways to do that, right? Understanding that everybody's journey is going to be a little different, but not forgetting to keep, not to lose the intention of what this is about, and don't get lost in the sauce, all right? Let's not get lost in the fighting, in la pelea. Like, we don't have to always agree on everything, and we don't have to be, feel triggered by a certain component of these topics and just immediately throw it all to one side, you know, one political angle or one political group. It has nothing to do with that. This was all about the people. This was all about the way it affected all of us from so many levels. I mean, mi gente, the COVID years affected our whole lifestyle, our whole everything that we knew, everything that we experienced, the moment we woke up to the moment we fell asleep, every component was affected, almost out of our control, right? It was a very, very, very well organized few years. Pero like I going back to like the goal of, we got to start these conversations, and part of that is being able to acknowledge the ways, and we in ways we where we still hold on to the pain or the trauma or the anger,
As
right?
you can tell, I've got some anger around this
Yes, you know, like right.
situation.
My sister had her own experiences around mask and masking that were traumatizing and very upsetting to her, as well as most of us did, right? If not all of us to some degree or the other. That trauma, those are things that we hold within our body. Excuse me. And if you're the type of person that you were like, well, the mask to me was no big deal. I just put it on, whatever. Why are you making such a big deal? Listen, if you were able to navigate those years and not really feel bothered here or there around the mask or not stop to question why the masking at all, then, God bless you if you were still able to navigate and kind of focus on other things. But that wasn't the case for a lot of people. A lot of people had a really big problem being masked for so many reasons. And, we have to all show some sort of compassion to each other because that's going to be
And
part of the
respect.
healing process.
And
Exactly.
respect.
Right. Like, oh, hey, I didn't experience that the way you did. I'm sorry that that's the way it affected you. From my point of view, this is how I experienced it. But it doesn't mean it's not someone's truth, you know?
Listen, community members, let me give you a short rundown of things that I experienced. At the height of it, I almost got arrested at a supermarket.
Well, you were getting some pan and then you almost made it to jail?
Yes. Um, it it was fighting off people chasing you, feeling like you're being stalked and while you're shopping. Because some people really did lose their minds and they really were acting a fool. And they were communicating with people during those times through their fear framework or maybe fear of losing their job. Because again, fear makes a lot of people do things. And that's one of the things that we need to. I have a fear of fire, and I had a fear of actual seeing the fire truck and the firemen. So while there were times that we would see firemen show up and women, there were always people around me like, those delicious looking, handsome, strong men. And I would be shaking from head to toe because I was in a trauma response.
Right.
So we can all be experiencing the same thing, but because we're in our bodies and we have different triggers, there was no enjoyment. There was nothing for me to enjoy on any level because I was still replaying an experience we had as children when we were kids and there was a fire in our building and we had to get evacuated in the middle of the winter from a 4th floor fire escape. So we
Yeah.
can't assume here. A lot of people just assume. And the mask, to me, was not only a symbol of shut the effie uppy because of the things we studied and because we had data that we were trying to communicate with the community members and we got censored in all sorts of ways.
I think you should expound on that a little bit when you say, because obviously the experience you had with the mask represented a lot of things. It wasn't just, oh, I got to put on this physical thing that's impeding my breath, right?
It was the door to crushing our livelihood.
Right.
So this is the charge.
I'm asking you to expound a little bit on the part when you're like, oh, it represented, that like shut the F up. And for someone like you, with the nature of what you do, and not just with Cafecito Break, I mean, people in the community may or may not know, but my sister has had a long career within the world of media on many capacities for a very long time. And it's just been in different expressions. But even during our time within our crystal metaphysical shop, what's the number one thing that happens there? Communication, right? And then, of course, focusing on Cafecito Break, communication, expression, right? And then the other component too is like health and whole body. Like you also you studied to be a health coach, right? So
And
much
yoga and
of
all that stuff. So much preparation.
so when you say it meant shut the F up, all of a sudden you were feeling like what? Like, what did that ultimately mean to you when you looked at your whole life and everything that you had done and was still doing or trying to do?
Everything that represented our double careers in something that we had given over 10 years to stopped for us. And a lot of it began with the masks. A lot of the people that we still have in our lives that will pass by us and pretend that they don't know us starts with the mask, because I refuse to wear one, and I refuse to be in settings where I needed to wear one, and I refuse work, and I cited even my civil rights liberties. I lost jobs. I got excommunicated from communities that I had relationships with for 10 plus years. We lost more than 10 social media accounts. The Perez sisters account started to get affected and shadow banned. That means that we're not, any business that we're doing is shut down. We got ostracized on social media, in the community, all because we said we're not going to wear the mask. We never told people don't be stupid and wear and not wear masks. Like we would present information, and I think that's sort of, to me, is a stolen moment, that the weaponization of fear stole a lot of moments from relationships, all sorts of very sacred relationships. And we each have a part, and we each played a part in this. And some of us need to make amends. I'm sorry, sometimes we do have to apologize. Maybe it starts with yourself for what you think you accepted. Many of us were fooled. Many of us were tricked. Many
Or
of us
pressured.
were pressured. Many of us had no choice but to make certain exceptions and concessions. And we respect all of you who had to make that sacrifice and who made that sacrifice. We do not respect the people who got angry at us because we chose to defend our God-given right to breathe fresh air. The fact that we have people who stop talking to us because I want to breathe the air that God put us on this planet to enjoy is, to me, one of the most ridiculous conversations that I have ever witnessed in my entire life. And it's taken every little bit of energy not to pop off, because we couldn't even see our uncle who was dying in the hospital because we did not want to follow protocols that the hospital hadn't even updated, because at that point the CDC updated its rules, and the current hospital was not following those rules. So it's really upsetting to us to be in settings where people are supposed to know more in their profession, and we get a little bit more of an update, and there's no respect. There's no respect for anything that feels like, oh, you chose to think outside the box. And then, like my sister says, it's not, oh, they're choosing to think outside the box, so they're defending their rights to breathe because of wellness and health. No, it was, they must be crazy white Nazi supremacists, anti-vaxxers, Trump supremacists.
Yeah, we've been given a lot of special nicknames.
Including people like us being put on special lists, on the terrorist watch list.
I mean, could you imagine,
People like us that said no are being tracked.
could you
Teachers who
imagine
said no
people
are
who,
being tracked.
could you imagine people who were like, I'm just gonna go get a little sun, were considered dangerous, you know? Um,
I'm hot.
well, okay. So then, do you feel like you've been able to work through some of these traumas, some of the anger, the frustration? Because obviously, the mask is one component, but it's really ultimately what it represents and sort of what it escalated into. It began with that and then began escalating. And in the end, like, as you're looking back in these last few years, like, do you feel like you've been able to let go of some of that anger? And if you haven't, do you feel like you've been able to use it to put into something else?
Well, creating these episodes and having a space to share, because our other platform, news is moving so fast, there's not a space for us to really share our world in there. It's more, it's become like bigger than us, right? It's become like a platform where we're really sharing boots on the ground reports, or people are sharing boots on the ground reports with us, or things that have to do with freedom, health freedom, things that have to do with community wellness and hello, taking care of our country.
Listen,
I'm celebrating having pride that I live and I'm grateful to be here in the United States, even as crazy as it is here in New York City.
because it is a little crazy, a lot crazy. Pero, I just want to say, like, going back to COVID years and these and stolen moments and having to navigate, still having to move forward, making choices that straight up had consequences, especially if the choices you were making weren't, acceptable mainstream norms in the moment, right? Um, I just want to say that for me, and I'm sure that even to my sister, she can disagree if she wants to. A lot of how we navigated was just having integrity, moving with integrity with the lifestyle we were creating. Like ultimately, for maybe the community that have known us for many years and maybe have been confused as to, hey, why did they make that choice, or why did it seem like they supported that, or I don't understand what's going on. If you really stop to think about it, a lot of the way we've been moving was just being honest to who we were. We've actually been very consistent, and if and we pivot along the way according to what we learn and integrate that we feel is important. Coming from the perspective of like a woman, a mother, a person from the community, an urban medicine woman, a person that is a podcaster or that holds information or teaches sometimes. Like my job is to try to be as honest as possible, to try to look at the whole body, to not forget the spirit. And if I'm working with people and if I'm living my life, well, I have to apply that to my life. Like I can't have spent all those years sitting with people, holding space, or starting with myself first, right? All the things I've studied, all the things I had applied to my life, and then all of a sudden when it counted, that I was just gonna forget. And it's one of those things like once you know, you can't unknow.
Mm-hmm.
And after so many years of studying so many things and already having living them as a part of my lifestyle, as something I passed on to my own children, and here we are in the middle of COVID, or in the midst of it. I had questions too at the beginning, like everyone else. I had a lot of like, okay, but um, I still was trying to operate from the information I knew, from everything that I had seen worked, and I moved forward the next few years applying that, and anything that I learned along the way, I would apply it and express it out and just maintain my consistency like that, because it didn't feel organic to me to be in a fearful state, or to um, encourage everyone to kind of run away into a corner, or not to encourage people to go outside and get some sun, or not to encourage people to go outside and look at other perspectives. Like that would have gone against everything that we have worked so hard to be within our different businesses, because no matter from what angle you look at it, it's been about expression and communication and teaching and living a holistic, inspired life.
Yeah, holistic with the W, like
Yeah,
whole. And
right.
one of the
Mind,
ways,
body, soul.
one of the ways that you really can feel whole in your body is when you go to sleep at night and you have peace with who you are. And there were many moments in my life that I've gone to sleep and I didn't feel peaceful because I knew at some point in that day I betrayed myself. I said a small lie. And it could be like, how are you feeling, Rose Angel? I'm feeling great. And maybe I was so sad that day. Or it could be that famous thing, don't say yes to others when you're saying no to yourself. That has been one of the biggest patterns that I've been working on learning. I don't know how to not be so, oh, here, and as we also need to pour onto ourselves. And when 2020 came, there was something that was very crystal clear.
So,
One thing was March 2020, the energy outside felt so delicious. I basked. I was like, why aren't more people outside? Because I would take long, glorious walks in my neighborhood, enjoying it. And then I'd go online and I would see people that we knew in our community literally cursing at people because they saw them at the park. And our local parks would be on the paper all of the
we
time.
were always in
We
trouble
were
in our
always in
neighborhood.
trouble in our neighborhood. Look at these fools
Listen,
daring to get some sun.
I was so guilty of that. I was out because, like I said, I continued what has always worked for me. And one thing that has always worked for me is I like to sit by the pier.
Yeah.
Why do I do that? For a few reasons. The sun, the sun is incredibly healing and energizing. Um, it's very grounding amongst so many other elements. The water, to me, I mean, I'm a fish, Pisces, so I'm always called to the water. It's very calming. It reminds me to be in calm. It reminds me to be in flow. Um, and so it's not just good for my physiological health to be in the sun because we need the vitamin D3. Pero it's good for my mind, my emotional state, my spiritual self. And so for me, making time every day or almost every day to be out in some capacity in nature feeds all of that. Because, like we've been saying, using the word whole body. So we continue doing the same things that have worked. Like, if for years that has helped to keep me healthy and strong, why would I stop in the middle of a situation where everyone's
Right.
saying,
Don't go
don't
to
get
the
sick,
bar.
don't get sick.
Don't go
Okay,
to the
well,
beach.
I'm gonna
Don't
continue
do
doing what has
exercise
worked.
and sweat out the caca. No, no,
Yeah.
no. Go to the bar. Go to Walmart. Don't go to church. We might find you. That makes no sense. Like, how are we going to paint these years that we just experienced? Guilty land, the media and certain people who were in the upper echelons that had a window and they understood what they were doing. I don't think Fauci is so innocent.
Amongst so
Time
many
will,
of them.
time will tell. Time will tell. But it wasn't just 2020. It wasn't just the masks. It wasn't just the forced vaccinations. It was the riots that happened in 2020. It was the way the media told you pretty much to question your friendships, to question people who live in other bodies, to be so divisive. And all I've seen is probably some of the worst of humanity in the last couple of years. But that isness, the other isness also exists when you have the courage to really live in your authenticity and the way you know that it's just you know that, because that means you could sleep at night. And for everybody, it's different. Sometimes when you have nightmares continuously of things chasing you, maybe that's a little clue.
Symbolic to something
Symbolic of something you're not facing that you keep chasing
that
and
keeps
running
chasing
from.
you.
That keeps chasing you and you're running from. Like, the dreams will find you and give you some of that s- truth smackdown, right?
And it'll just keep coming to you,
It'll
when we're
keep
not
coming to
facing
you.
something. I mean, we all get it. We all
When I
get
was
it.
going through those early stages of trying to figure out how to articulate my what I wanted to say, I went through a lot of moments where I felt bullied by people, and my sister would be in shock, like, "Was your little mouth?" And I didn't know how to articulate myself in those days. I don't know why. I was really just going through a phase in my life. Here's the thing: in dream time, I would get my tests, and it's like, "Oh,
And wake you
biatch,
up.
you didn't learn your lesson in waking time, so now in
And do it
this dream
again.
time, we're gonna put you in a similar situation, and let's see if you advocate for yourself." And I kept having dreams with that theme over and over and over again. And there was just this one dream where I'm in that moment, and I felt familiar to me, but I was like, you ain't gonna intimidate me.
You stood up for yourself. You were like,
But
this
I
is
also
it.
puffed my
This is not a
chest
drill,
out.
mi gente. I'm going to do it.
This was not a drill. I assumed the bodybuilder stance that I don't bodybuild.
You were getting
Not even
ready.
close. I'm not even a gym girl. But I was like, oh heck no. And when I woke up from that dream, I realized that a little part of my soul came back in a sense. I felt healed and I felt like I graduated from being up in there. And so then when 2020 comes and I have all of these pieces and I've been practicing in this
You were
reality
more
and in dream
seasoned.
reality to advocate for myself,
You were like, oh, hey.
nobody was going to shut
No.
me up.
Well, mi gente, friendly reminder, sister reminder, as we always have and always will do, pay attention to your dreams and dreaming and the many messages that it is trying to convey, that they try to convey to you, because as you can see, there can a lot of healing and understanding can come out of them when you're paying attention to them. Another thing that we want to say to all of you is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that we're sorry that you had to endure any stolen moment. We, as people that also went through stolen moments and was underground with a lot of activism and met so many people face to face during some of their hardest stolen moments. And I'm sure all of you have stories yourself or people that you know of. To me, it is always, it's heartbreaking. It's sad. It doesn't bring me any joy. It's like a combination of frustration and sad. And as people that worked within our spiritual metaphysical space, and we had children coming in with all of their stolen moments and anxieties, and the parents and all the other community members, we were face to face with people's anxieties and fears and hard times that were triggered out of how COVID was being managed. So to us, part of how we navigated was also that it was in our face every day. It was what we were doing. And we are sorry. It's hurtful. And for many of you, some stolen moments will never have any sort of, and nothing could ever gift you something back or make it up.
Yeah.
Some
There's
stolen
no
moments
compensation for it.
will never have compensation, and you will just have to find a way to heal and live with it. And we are sorry for that. And we want to work with community to help move forward, to heal. And it starts by acknowledging the trauma and the anger that we're feeling, and we're all carrying something. Like, as you can see, my sister's very candid with, I'm still like,
I'm still charged up.
I'm still right. She's still charged up over it. But even within her charge, she understands, well, I have to find a way to move forward.
And creativity, enjoying moments of pleasure, something besides us tapping into our toolkit in 2020 forward. We have said this time and time and time and time and time again. We would not have been able to manage those moments had it not been for the community that we were part of, that we had been growing and fortifying and seeding and pouring into, and they were pouring into us. And you guys know who you are. There is a gratitude for you that I will carry always in my heart.
Because mi gente, it takes a village. That saying, we always associate it with the children. And while that's true, in reality, it's true for all of us. We all need a village. We all need the village in different ways at different stages in our life. But what doesn't change is that we need each other. And so, as we continue to have, start diving a little bit more into some of these really intense COVID moments and chats and expression of some of our maybe hardest moments or traumas around it. It's going to be about being able to acknowledge and release and move towards healing. Please comment below if these are conversations you're interested in listening to. Comment below if you have released your stolen moments or if you're in the process of healing through them. But we're always in a state of positivity and hope. I do know we're going to move through it, but it will take time and it will take work. And it starts by being able to face the truth of what things were, even the parts that are ugly and intense.
And what was taken from you? Are you upset at your friends or your loved one? Or are you really upset at whoever gave you that message, that imprint? For many people, it was the media. The people that weren't watching the media, they had no idea. They were just enjoying their life. They were not participating in the fear campaign.
Yeah.
And this is kind of how you know. There's a lot of studies that are out there. We know that fear, when you're in that fear, this is why I shared how I would get triggered when I would see a fire truck or hear the sounds of see firemen and women. My body would just kind of just stop. I felt like I would stop thinking and get iced out. And that's a very
Vulnerable place to be.
yeah, and it's right. It's so vulnerable because you don't know. It's like it's not like an experience that you live through every day.
No,
So,
and when you are, when an emotion is triggered out of you that comes from a place of trauma, and during those moments, we are vulnerable to a lot of things. We are not just vulnerable to those emotions and those fears. We are vulnerable to the situation because you may not be in your clarity to know how to navigate it, or even be able to move at all. And also in the way people try to approach you or feed you information, and that's essentially what has happened through mainstream media. For all of these for any major event, but as you know, focusing on COVID years, like mainstream media were huge leaders in the fear mongering campaign.
I believe that they have a lot of blood on their hands, and when we are seeing the media of how other people have gotten in trouble for words that they have used that didn't lead to any deaths, but they get in trouble and they get lawsuit or they get their livelihoods or they get unpersoned because that's a real thing these days. And then you see the propaganda that mainstream media gets away with, how many, not just COVID, how many lies they've told, how many lives they are responsible for. And they're just still, and we're still consuming it.
Because family, my sister and I, we have a very mixed community, but I just want us all to remember that there are still a lot of us that really still have a lot of trust in the media. And I know that for some, that may sound ridiculous. You may even laugh at that, but it isn't a laughing matter. In reality, it isn't, because the truth is there are still a lot of masses that truly believe that there's no way that if the media is covering it, it's a lie. They still have trust.
And the media kept telling people to not trust human beings that were asking you to do your research. That was weaponized. Those 3 words were weaponized.
And
Do
just
your
finding
research.
ways to divide us, So I just feel like for those of us that are really aware of these topics and we're maybe a little polarized in that direction, like friendly sister reminder to have a little bit more compassion for those that are either just beginning to wake up or connect the dots, or for those that haven't even begun. And for those that maybe are in that beginning stage, there are a lot of people that have been through the same journey you are on. And it can be overwhelming when you're trying to do a deep dive, when you're trying to explore. Like when people say do your research, that's kind of overwhelming. Because if you've never actually been in a position where you're like, do my research, what do you mean? Where do I start? Who do I go
Shouldn't
to?
I trust the good people in leadership and government and the Faucis.
Right, but even if you decided that you weren't gonna trust any of those people, and people just say to you, just do your research. These open-ended. It almost sounds like it's too simple. Maybe it is too simple for others that have been on this journey already. But if you're beginning, that's gonna sound overwhelming.
Yeah.
We understand that. So take it step by step. Just be open to looking at different perspectives.
Take advantage of your smartphone and the internet that's at your fingertips.
But be
Careful.
vigilant. And as you're approaching different angles or listening to different perspectives, you gotta create a criteria for yourself. Like, it doesn't matter what information you're hearing, you gotta have a set of questions for yourself. It was almost like we gotta retrain or train ourselves to be like, well, I'm not just gonna take anything word for word. Let me just hear it out. Maybe continue expanding on that thought or that perspective, and see if it holds any real truth. Like, you got to take it in steps, and you will see that over time it'll become a little easier to find sources that you feel come closer to the truth, or maybe just one slice of the truth. And maybe you just got to do a few different slices to feel like you're sort of getting sort of like if you feel like informed. Because the truth is, there's so much information.
You could prove whatever it is you buy is right.
Right. And
So that's
also,
kinda tricky.
we're living in a time where everyone is competing for information.
attention.
And attention. So meaning that everyone wants to be at the forefront of information. So what happens, it's like, if everyone's trying to put information out and get the attention through their information, a lot of times that information people are putting out may not even be authentic. It may not even be coming from real, genuine sources or facts, because they're focused more on, well, I want to be at the forefront. I want to be sensational. I want to get the attention. So you have to be very vigilant, very attentive, very discerning when you're
Who are
moving
you
forward.
listening to?
Yeah, don't
Just
just
because the
trust.
person has a great big following doesn't mean they really understand what's
No,
going on.
just because the person may look like you doesn't mean that it's coming from an authentic place. Just because the person looks like they sound really like an expertise doesn't really mean that they're as genuine. Like, discern, mi gente, is what we're trying to
Discern.
say.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you.
We're not going to give homework this week because it's like we're going to be celebrating Independence Day soon.
But we did ask you to comment on things earlier in the video, so please feel free to do that if you feel so called to. And, once again, we encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, y por favor, share our page with anyone that you think would be called to this messaging or this particular series around COVID and the path to healing. Because at the end of the day, that is the goal. We got to take those steps because we can, and we will, mi gente. We will.
Bye.
Ciao. We will see you next week.